Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? Have you ever wanted to volunteer, but you didn't know where to start or what's involved? Well, for example, what do you want to do? And what is it that's required of you? What are the expectations? Where do you find info? Today I'm going to go over all of that and then I'll give you the pros and cons at the end. At some point, most of us start thinking about giving back, whether it's because we finally have the time or we just want to feel useful again. I know I've been thinking about it, but there's a slight fear for me of becoming too involved or too committed. Because I like to know everything if I can. And I don't so that's my fear. That's what holds me back from saying yes, let's go find this place that I will be perfect at. Did you ever have those thoughts? I mean, you had to have had those thoughts at some time or another when you thought about volunteering. So today let's talk about what it really takes to volunteer. Not just where to sign up, but how to make sure you don't give away more of yourself than you're meant to. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe, tap that little bell and hit that like button. And if you know someone in your life that's talking about volunteering and doesn't know where to start, well, share this video with them so they have all the information they need to get started. I appreciate it if you do that. Let's begin with why we volunteer and move on to what it takes to volunteer and then where you can go to volunteer. So volunteering, it means different things to different people. I mean, have you ever wanted to be more involved in your community? See what's going on, see what's happening out there, who's part of it. Be a part of the activities that happen. Help the elderly or the others less fortunate. For many, it's a way to stay active and social. And for many, it's sometimes deeper. We want to stay connected to the part of ourselves, that's always been the caregiver, the helper, the listener, the one who just shows up. You may want to feel useful again, but if you're not careful, you may find yourself giving too much. So, what does it take? And what are the responsibilities and the realities of this? Volunteering is about good intentions and commitment. When an organization counts on you, they even once a week, you become a part of that structure. So reliability matters, confidentiality matters, especially in places like hospitals, senior centers, or schools. You may not be on the payroll, but you're still part of a team that runs on trust. And here's something we don't always hear about, the emotional boundaries. Some of us, especially the helper types, we can get pulled in too deeply to others' struggles. Volunteering should connect you, not emotionally drain you. So if you find yourself being burnt out, talk to your volunteer coordinator and let them know. You can always say, I've really enjoyed myself here and being a part of this, but I need to adjust my time so I can keep giving the best of me. So don't be afraid to speak out and bring your boundaries up front. That's very important in volunteering. It lets them know where you stand and you know what you are committing yourself to. So, what are the responsibilities and the reality? When you volunteer, you're taking on responsibilities, even if you don't clock in. That means showing up when you say you are. That's so important to someone who's hiring volunteers for that person to be there when they say they will. But if you can't make it, make sure you communicate that with them. That's all they're asking so that they can get someone else to come in and do what you are going to do. And just remember, you represent your organization in the community. So be on your best. You may be limited in your responsibilities in some of the roles that you take on. Some organizations are strict about roles, especially if you're in a hospital or in a school because of their privacy and safety laws. So don't expect to be able to go into a business and learn everything there is about it. You will be limited into what your role is. And yes, believe it or not, you can be let go. That's the reality of it. Usually it's done kindly, but if it's not the right fit, well, it's not the right fit. Well, thank you. They'll thank you. And you never know. You just may be thanking them for recognizing that this wasn't a good fit. So it's not personal. It's not a personal thing at all. So where do you start and how do you sign up? Good news, there are more volunteer opportunities than ever. You just have to know where to look. Here are 10 great websites to start with and 11 local ideas in case you just want to really stick local. I've listed them below in the description so you can find them and go back and refer to them when you're ready to start looking at all the volunteer opportunities. And then we'll talk about how you sign up. So I'm going to go over the first two. Volunteermatch.org, which filters opportunities by location and interest. And number two is idealistorganization.org. And it's great for causes like education, arts, or the environment. The reason I'm bringing them both up is because volunteermatch.org recently merged into idealist.org in 2025. So now, between those two sites being merged together, it's a huge variety of volunteering by your location. You can look up it by your state or your city. It even helps, which I found interesting, with job offers. They have them posted on there. And again, it's by location, and you can do on site, remote, or hybrid employment. And they offer both full time and part time. So if you're looking for a part time job or a full time job, check on this website. It was pretty amazing. I did go on it. It is nice. Number three is the AARP Volunteer Portal. It's tailored for older adults with flexible schedules. So if you're flexible, maybe AARP is the way to go. American Corps Seniors. It connects retirees with meaningful local services. United Way, it has a strong community partnership nationwide. And Habitat for Humanity, where you go and you work hands on and you build it yourself projects. If you're interested in that type of work, go there. The Red Cross is from disaster response to blood drives. Meals on Wheels America, it delivers meals and smiles to your homebound seniors. Feeding America is the local food banks across the country. And number 10 is the Humane Society, for those animal lovers and those who want to lend a hand or a leash. And then in most US cities, you can also find opportunities right in your own neighborhood. You've got libraries, hospitals, senior centers, public schools, chamber of commerce, museums, food banks, community gardens, local political offices, and churches. So, what's the best approach? Think about your own strengths. Do you love people, pets? How about paperwork? Because, yes, even paperwork is a gift in some organizations. And personally, I did work in one of those organizations where I was able to get a volunteer. I had so much paperwork. And this person helped me tremendously, this volunteer, and she actually ended up working for me for the couple years, and then I left that company, and then she also left. In fact, she followed me. I let her volunteer at the next place I started working at. And It was fantastic because not only did I have somebody very talented in paperwork, I also we became, like best friends for a while there, and we still are constantly speaking to each other. So you never know. So what about you? What kind of volunteer work would fill you up? I mean, let us know in the comments, because if you are volunteering right now, tell us what's the best things about doing it and where your pros and cons are. And if you're considering it, tell us what you're considering. What makes you excited and why? So how do you sign up? Not every volunteer role is as simple as, I'm just going to go show up and I'll just start helping. It doesn't work that way. Most organizations have an application process, and that can include a short interview, a reference check, orientation, or a background screening, especially if you want to go into the schools or the hospitals. And here's something that most people forget to ask. Am I covered under your organization's insurance while volunteering? You know, Bigger organizations usually do have coverage for volunteers, but smaller ones may not. So if this is a concern, ask up front. It is a very responsible question. So, what happens if it becomes too much? And what are the expectations on age and fitness? Sometimes what starts as a simple role, well, it can grow quickly. This is what I keep talking about. You might sign up for one afternoon a week, and suddenly you find yourself coordinating half the event calendar. If that happens, though, take a breath. You can always have a kind, honest talk with that volunteer coordinator. Something like, I really enjoyed this, but I'm being stretched a little too thin. Can we scale back, my hours? Or, could we possibly find a role that fits better? Again, it's about your boundaries. Don't forget your boundaries. If you find that it is becoming too much and it's more, say, like a job than volunteering, then speak to that volunteer coordinator. It's up to you to set your own boundaries on how much you will take on. So, what are the expectations on age and fitness? Well, let's talk about age for a moment. Most volunteer programs actually love older adults because of their reliability and wisdom. But some physical or driving based roles may prefer younger volunteers for the safety or insurance reasons for their organization. So again, not personal. It's for, their safety. The trick is matching your strengths with the needs. Hospitals love greeters and patient visitors. Senior citizens appreciate peer mentors. Schools need readers and tutors. Chamber of Commerce value business-minded volunteers. And animal shelters, well, they just love anyone who can handle a mop and a wagging tail. There is something for everyone. We can't end yet, though, without talking about the pros and cons of volunteering. So, what are the pros? It's a social connection and a link to your community, keeping you involved, a renewed sense of purpose, mental and physical engagement, and the good feeling that you get seeing your efforts make a difference. And the cons: overcommitment, emotional fatigue. Being involved in other struggles can have an effect on your emotions, feeling taken for granted if boundaries aren't clear. And again, that's a lot of your responsibility too. The balance is to remember that volunteering it's a gift of your time. So don't let it be a sacrifice of your time. And what are my final thoughts on this? Volunteering is still one of the most beautiful ways to stay connected. It reminds us that we still have something valuable to give and that giving doesn't have to mean losing ourselves in the process. Find a place where your heart and your energy truly belong. So if you're thinking about volunteering, keep it small, test the waters out first, work your way up, and remember to discuss your boundaries. So stay tuned for our next episode of What About? And we'll get to that very soon. So watch out for it. Stay tuned. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when it comes up. And so until the next time, bye.